algebra, we worked a lot with linear equations. And we're going to work with them again here, but to do that, we need kind of certain milestones to build on.
Sure.
So we're going to be writing linear equations. In order to do that, we need these important formulas. You need to know the formula for slope. Do you remember that one? Y equals mx plus b is not slope. That is slope-intercept form. Slope formula, m equals, how do you calculate the slant of a line? Rise over run is one way that it's done. The true formula says it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now the key thing with all of these formulas is you are working with points. One of the points is x1, y1. The other point is x2, y2. Now, m always represents that slope. So that y equals mx plus b, we got y equals slope times x plus the base. Hint, it's called slope-intercept form. The y value of the intercept, the y-intercept. Specifically, it's at the coordinate point 0b. Okay, last important form is point-slope form. I know. They're trying. They were resetting the AC and hoping that that would start pumping some cool air in. We're just not there yet. So, and then point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. Now, any of the variables, x's or y's with subscripts. So they have the little 1 or the little 2 in the corner. That's where numbers go in the equation. Any x's or y's that are just straight up x or y, those will stay x's and y's. So, we need to be able to write some equations. Generally speaking, when we want to write equations, this is the form we want in the end. We don't generally leave an equation in point-slope form, but point-slope form is great in those situations where you have a point and a slope, and that's all you know about the equation. Slope-intercept form, if you want to write an equation in that form, you need to know the slope and the y-intercept. I hate to break it to you, you're not always going to be getting the y-intercept given to you. So, the other form is helpful. Okay, problem 1. The graph shows the remaining balance y on a car loan after making X monthly payments. We want to write an equation for this. When it says write an equation, again, we're going for y equals mx plus b. So I need m, which is slope. I need b, which is the y-intercept. Do I know the slope of this line? Kinda. I've got enough information to find it. Do I know it currently? No. Can I find it? Yes. Now, given a graph, if you do rise over run, I'm perfectly okay with that. But you have to be careful with positives and negatives. Should this slope be positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative, because it's decreasing. Remember, you read graphs from left to right. Decreasing means a negative slope. So if you want to talk about rise and run, you take 2 coordinate points. Hey, there's 2 that are here. and you look at the changes in x's and the changes in y's. How much did the graph rise?
-10.
Rise is up and down, which means rise goes down to the y values. How much did the y values change? 3. Specifically, technically, from a point here to a point here, it went down 3. So often we'd say -3. As long as you get the negative on the final answer and you don't get, then you're good there. How much did it run? In other words, go left and right, specifically to the right. 10. So, on a graph like this, if you want to do rise over run, because that's easier, that's fine. M would be -3 over 10. Or generally, we put the negative out front. Slope should be left as a fraction in its simplified form. Can you simplify 3/10? No. 3 and 10 don't divide by the same thing. Now, if you are a person who struggles with rise and run, because you mix up rise and run all the time, that's where the slope formula comes in. We could have done this. This would have been taking the 0,18 and the 10,15, calling one of the points x1, y1, calling the other one x2, y2, and plugging them into the formula, which would have ended up being 15 minus 18 over 10 minus 0. Guess what? You would have gotten -3 over 10. Should you get the same thing? Yes. I don't care which way you do the slope, as long as you can calculate slope. Is that what the question asked for? No. What did the question ask us to do?
Write an equation.
Write an equation, which means we want y equals mx plus b. Now we just found m, 2 different ways. Do we know b? Do we know the y-intercept?
Yes.
Yes, where does the graph hit the y-axis?
18.
At 18. So we can go directly into y equals -3/10, that's the m, x, and then it's a positive 18, so plus 18. If you didn't have the y-intercept, that's where point slope comes into play. When it's point slope, let's say I didn't know this 0,18, I only knew the 10,15 and maybe a different point. The way point slope form works is I would have done y minus the y value of the point I know equals m parentheses x minus the x value I know that's for that same coordinate point. Now that's an ugly looking equation, but we can simplify it. I distribute. I get -3 over 10x. Negative times a negative is positive. That 10 and that 10 will cancel out because it's a multiply and divide, and I would have gotten +3. And guess what? Add the 15 to get the y alone, and do you notice we get the exact same equation as what we did initially? I don't care which way you do it. This way's faster if you have the y-intercept. Point slope form will work if you don't have the y-intercept. Or even if you do, it'll work. Another common thing it's going to ask us to do is to interpret the slope. Sometimes it'll ask about the y-intercept as well. But we're going to start with interpret the slope. We found the slope to be -3 over 10. Would you agree with that? Where did the 3 come from? It moved down 3. It came from the change in the y's. If you want to interpret the slope, interpretation of the slope is just putting in words what it's talking about when it talks about slope. Slope is rise over run. The 3 came from the rise. Changes in the y's. What's the units associated with the y's? Balance in dollars. Which means, since this is rise over run, it is dollars over, what's the run?
Payments.
Payments. In short, this is telling us, because it's talking about the car loan in general, so the balance, the loan, with the negative is decreasing. By 0.3 of $1 per payment. Now, technically, is it actually full on dollars? Look at the units a little closer. Thousands. So this should probably be thousands of dollars. My bad. I should have written that earlier. All interpreting the slope is asking you to do is to recognize what this change means in reference to its units. In this one, it's thousands of dollars per payment. And it is decreasing because it's negative 0.3 of $1,000 for every payment. So that's talking about the slope. Note how it also says interpret the y-intercept. Y-intercepts should be fairly straightforward with your interpretation of them. Because a y-intercept, every single y-intercept in existence has one thing in common. The first digit in its coordinate point is 0. Now the coordinate points start with x. And we're saying x is 0. So in this case, the number of payments is 0. So it's when no payments have been made in this case. Now that's only part of it. But the y-intercept will always have x be 0, which means it's always whenever this unit is 0. In this case, payments. Number of payments is 0. When you have made 0 payments, the 18 is telling us that's how much money is on the loan. The y value is telling you about the y, which in this case, the y is the balance. The balance was $18, or more accurately, $18,000. Okay, what is the remaining balance after 36 payments? Yes, Matt?
$7,200.
Wait, the answer is $2,000? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I haven't done the math yet. It might be. How'd you get it?
Slope intercept plugged in 36 for the x and then did the math from there.
36 is a number of payments. Always reference back to your units. Which unit is payments? Sorry, yeah, X's. I should have phrased that differently. Which variable has the unit of payments? That would have been a better question. X. So they're saying X is equal to 36. What is the remaining balance? In other words, what is Y? So yeah, just like Matt said, plug it in. We have an equation. Y equals negative 3 over 10 times 36 plus 18. I've had a lot of people asking me this lately. How do I put a fraction, negative 3/10, into a calculator? Fraction bar is nothing more than a divided by 10 times 36 plus 18. $7.2. Since that's a Y value, its units are thousands of dollars. This specific question asks one more thing. What is the meaning of the x-intercept? X-intercept and y-intercept, they're similar, but they're not exactly the same. On a graph, every single y-intercept has an x value of 0. Every single x-intercept will have what? 0 in the y values. So the x-intercept tells us an x value, the number of payments when the balance is 0. Number of payments coming from the x unit for when the balance, which comes from the y unit, is 0. And it's always going to be 0 for that y value for that x-intercept. Problem 2, we're not going to do the entire thing. I'm just going to ask you one question. How can I find the slope of this graph? I could do rise over run. I could do my slope formula, both of which need 2 points to rise and run between, to use in your formula. We're given this one. Don't forget this one. Point slope form only works if you know the slope and you're writing the equation. I'm just talking about finding the slope itself. I'm not trying to trick you when it comes to these graphs. If it looks like it hits 0, 0, guess what? It hits 0, 0. Now you have 2 points to do either rise and run with, or to use the slope formula on. We are going to flip to the next page then. We're not going to go through that entire problem. That entire problem is doing a lot of the same things. Okay. Question 3. Can you see the whole table over there? I can't see it from mine.
Yes.
Okay. 2 child care centers charge a registration fee plus the daily fee. The table shows the total cost in dollars for the different numbers of days at center A. Well, center B's equation is represented by y equals 35x plus 100. First things first, it wants us to write an equation for center A. We wrote an equation on the front. If we want to write an equation, we want it in y equals mx plus b form. First thing we need is the slope. How do I find the slope? With 2 points. Doesn't matter which 2 points. No, choose 2. I like smaller numbers. I don't know about you. I like that one and that one. Wait, how are those 2 points? They are x's and y's. They are the point 5, 225, and 10, 425. If I'm going to do the slope formula, which we wrote on the front, but I'm going to write on top here real quick. Common things that people make mistakes on with the slope formula, other than positives and negatives. Positives and negatives throw people off, so keep an eye on those. Common things I see. People put x's on top. Slope is y's on top. Secondly, people grab the 2 numbers from the same coordinate point and call them both y's, or call them both x's. How do coordinate points always go?
X and Y.
X, Y, every single time. That's an X, that's a Y. That's an X, that's a Y. If they come from the same coordinate point, they have the same subscript. I don't care which one you call X1, Y1, and which one's X2, Y2, as long as they go X, Y, X, Y. Slope formula. Y2 minus Y1. Is 425 minus 225 the way I set it up. Over x2 minus x1. 10 minus 5. The next most common mistake I see people do is this. Is that the same as what's on paper? No. What's wrong with it? Parentheses. Remember, in all technicality, fractions, tops are grouped and bottoms are grouped. I just recommend you do it separately. What is 425 minus 225?
200.
200. What about 10 divided by 5?
5.
Simplify the fraction if you can. Does 200 divide by 5?
Yeah.
Simplify?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to a nice whole number. 40. That's M. I need B. Do I have a y-intercept?
No.
No. Y-intercepts happen when x is 0. I don't have a starting point where x is 0. So, my only option is point slope form. Again, I have it written on front, but for the convenience of notes, I don't know why I wrote a 2 there. I shall write it again. When writing in point slope form, do I put numbers in this y? No. Do I put numbers in that y? Yes. Doesn't matter which point you work with, just choose one of your coordinate points. I like smaller numbers. 225 equals, what is m? 40. What is regular x? Stays x. What is x sub 1? 5. If I want to get y alone, what do I have to do? Distribute first. Y minus 225 equals 40x minus 200 plus 225. Interpret the slope and the y-intercept again. Interpreting slope, again, is all about looking at the units. And remembering, slope is rise over run. Rise is changes in y values. What unit is therefore associated with the rise on that? Just the rise is cost. The run is days. Which means rise over run is cost per day. That means center A, which is the one we just calculated for, costs $40 per day. On the other hand, what does center B cost? $35 per day. Center B gave you the equation, y equals 35x plus 100. 35 is the slope. Okay? So that's interpreting the slope. Now, what if I want to interpret the y-intercepts? Y-intercept always occurs where the coordinate point goes 0 followed by a number. Did we have the y-intercept coordinate point? No. But do we know what the y-intercept is now?
Yep.
What's this form called?
Y-intercept form.
Slope-intercept form.
Intercept form.
40 is the slope. 25 is the y-intercept. So for center A, we're saying the x value is 0. What's the x value represent? What's the units on the x values? Number of days. So when the kid goes to daycare 0 days, how much does center A charge you? $25. Which if you read the original question, that must be the registration fee, in other words. That being said, if you just tell me at 0 days, cost is 25, I'm okay with that. Center B at 0 days, what would be our cost? Remember, center B's equation is written in the actual problem itself. $100. It's all about interpreting units. We're going to be done with builds right there. I don't know why I'm choosing to write here, but I'm going to choose to write here. Today's practice problems are on page 24. We're going to be on page 24 today and tomorrow, so please write day 1 on the top of this assignment. It is questions 1 through 9.